Hello there, and welcome back to the Chap's Guide. My name is Ash, and I'm your host on this journey through men's style, self-development and personal grooming. Now today, it's a product review, and more than that, it's a review around a lifestyle choice. The choice of journaling. Because wherever I look, just recently, I seem to be falling across advertisements for the product I'm going to talk about today, the Mind Journal, but also the value of journaling in somebody's life. The fact that, capturing your thoughts in the written word promotes improved introspection and in turn improves your mental state, your wellness and your overall better function of the brain. And as a chap with a bit of a history of journaling, I thought I would explore more to see if it was something I could recommend to you. My history of journaling goes back a long way. So far, in fact, that we just called it keeping a diary. And let's be honest, this current trend of journaling, that's all we're on about. We are keeping a diary. Just we're calling it something more trendy in the modern era. And for me, my sort of high point of keeping a diary came when I was 20 years of age, in my early 20s, because I was in the military and I was based in Germany. And in 1990, in Germany, the wall had just come down, the end of the Cold War, and it was a very different time to the modern era. There was no streaming of television channels, no watching video on demand or anything like that. The only entertainment we had available was, television. And in fact, in Germany, we had a part-time English language television channel, which predominantly was stacked with sporting events and soap operas for the soldiers, sailors and airmen's wives who wanted to watch the channel as well. So actually, entertainment was a very slim thing. So for me, I idled away my time by reading, but also by keeping a diary. And sadly, the diaries I kept back then have long since been lost. It would be great to read about the mundanity of my life. I remember playing an awful lot of squash, and I remember drinking an awful lot of German beer, but I'd like to fill in some of those gaps in between those two things, which are now lost to the passing of time. But for sure, I always took a lot of joy and cathartic enjoyment from keeping a diary. I would just keep a record of those simple things. Today, people would recognize what we were doing then, keeping a diary, as your actions on social media. You might keep a record of the food that you ate, the people that you encountered. Of course, back then there was no instant photography. You couldn't capture an image of your breakfast as people like to do today. We would keep it in a diary. And there's something about using a pen on paper for me, which triggers a creative part of my mind, and it certainly helped me in my development as a creative writer and as somebody making best use of the English language. Certainly my skills as a writer today were enhanced by the fact that every day I wrote in my diary. It was something to do, something creative, something positive and useful, because you can always look back and see what you've done. Now, before deciding to take the plunge and buy the Mind Journal, I researched a bit more about it, and I was quite shocked to discover there is much scientific research material which is available for anybody to see, which will suggest and supports that expressive writing of the kind which one does when they keep a journal or a diary has very many positive qualities for the human brain, and that has sort of knock-on effects then to your physical health and well-being as well. It has been suggested that writing about challenging situations in your life can help an individual come to terms with the trauma and the effects of those situations, and can contribute to improved mental health and well-being in relation to the impact of those situations. Now, the Mind Journal came into existence in 2016 in the format I think that we're aware of it today, and it was created by a young English chap called Ollie Applin. Now, Ollie's story is one of tragedy. His mother sadly took her own life through suicide, and as a consequence of that awful situation, he suffered post-traumatic stress disorder. But one of the ways he coped with that awful part of his life was to keep a journal. And he discovered that by keeping that journal, it really helped him come to terms with the tragedy, the loss and the bereavement that he'd suffered, and improved his mental health and well-being. And he recognized that it was an opportunity for him to share his experiences with other men by creating the tool that we know today as the Mind Journal. Now, being a chap with a history in design, he looked up the research and he set about creating this interesting thing called the Mind Journal. Now, the Mind Journal brand focuses very heavily on its social and personal improvement credentials. And as you can imagine, being a chap with a history of journaling, I thought I would take the plunge and see if there's anything in this new sort of structured journaling process, which is effectively what the Mind Journal is. So I took the plunge. I paid just under £30. The price has gone up since because of global shortages of raw materials. It's now £35, there or thereabouts, and they do ship globally. It's available via the website. I don't believe they sell via Amazon. So you have to go to Mind Journal itself. But I took the plunge and I have found it to be quite an interesting experience. So how does the Mind Journal work? Well, it entices us into its little world by giving us a 100% happiness guarantee, and it tells us that the best version of ourselves lies within this small book. So how does it do it? Well, it guides us through, and it'll take about 3 months to do the whole process, we're told. It guides us through 30 scientifically researched exercises within the structure of the book, which promise to improve the way that we act, think and feel. Those 30 exercises are interspersed with daily check-in tools, which capture and consolidate our hopes, achievements and aspirations for each day, helping you sort of capture your goals on paper and somehow motivating you to get those things done, or perhaps when reflectively looking back upon them, seeking some sort of enjoyment from the fact that you'd climbed those little mountains, you've conquered those peaks in your ordinary everyday life. So as I say, there are 30 exercises and they're split up into 3 definite sections. The first section is all around helping you to get used to capturing your thoughts, consolidating your ideas within the journaling format. Nice, simple, straightforward exercises, helping you learn as you go into it. The second section works on helping you identify your strengths and weaknesses and capture that in the written form. And then the third and final stage is all about helping you visualize the future, preparing and getting ready to be, as they say, the better version of yourself by using these exercises to improve and grow your mind and the way that you think about your life. So let's have a look at the journal, the star of the show. And here it is. Now it comes to us in a robust cardboard sheath, a slipcover, which is really good because it protects the actual journal which is kept inside. Let's not forget, we are going to be sharing some of our intimate thoughts with this journal, so it's good to know that it is safely protected and away from prying eyes. Now, the journal itself, A5 format, as you can see, and it has a lovely soft cover which is quite tactile and quite solid, quite robust. You know, this, shall I just say, it feels made of quality. That's the best I can say. When we open the journal, inside the paper is a lovely 110 GSM ivory paper. And as a bit of an avid fountain pen writer, I have to say I have really enjoyed using this paper. It's quite sheer, it takes the ink beautifully, the ink doesn't bleed through to the next page. It's a joy to write in. And if you like expressive writing or creative writing with a fountain pen, it'll be part of the whole experience with writing in your journal. It's a pleasure to actually put your thoughts down on this quality paper. So what are my thoughts on the Mind Journal? How do I sum it all up? Well, at this stage, I am about, 10 weeks into my experience with the Mind Journal. And they suggest that it will take around about 3 months. You know, the pace and the speed which you progress through the exercises, is entirely up to you. You can, cut out a few days if you don't feel like doing it, you're away, you've got nothing to write in there. It's a matter for you how quickly you go through it. I have found it really quite pleasurable to keep the journal up. One of the consequences I have found of keeping the journal is that I've found the time out of my what I thought were very busy and time-stacked days to find 10, 15 minutes to sit down on a day, get your pen out and write in the journal. It has been quite a pleasing experience to do that. I do have to say that some of the exercises caused me to have some quite serious and soulful self-reflection, which can only have improved my outlook on life and my mental well-being. So from that regard, I think the exercises in this book are useful. They are of high quality. And for me, as somebody now who is, sort of way over 2/3 through my mind journal experience, I have found it a very positive thing to spend time on. But it's not all plain sailing, I have to say, because completing the exercises, it does ask of you to be quite honest with yourself, and as I say, to do quite a lot of self-reflection, to a lot of soul-searching to fill in the book. And that can be a painful situation if you're somebody who carries emotional baggage. You've had a traumatic life, a difficult life, because you will be undoubtedly raking up old thoughts and certainly thinking about the future direction of your life. But on the whole, as I look back upon my time with this mind journal, it's been a good experience for me. I have enjoyed it. It was worthy of the investment which I made. I know it's a little bit more expensive now, £35. The product itself is good, but the research and the scientific sort of material within it definitely, I think, merit that amount of investment. And as I look back through it now, seeing my handwriting in here, and seeing those exercises which I undertook, this is something I will draw upon in the future. I will keep it. I will look back at my journey and see how I felt at this time in my life, the aspirations that I had for the future. And it'll be interesting, perhaps in 20 years, if I'm still on this planet, to look back and see, did any of it come true? Was the science proven? I do recommend it to you, chaps. It is something, perhaps, if you are looking to explore a bit more about yourself, that you could undertake. There's not a lot of risk here. It's not a hugely expensive item, but there's a lot to be gained if you commit to the whole process. So, I hope you've enjoyed this video review of the Mind Journal. If you have, by all means, give us a thumbs up. And don't forget, if you're not a subscriber, subscribe to the channel by clicking the red button. And if you would like to assist the channel in a more practical way, don't forget, you can always buy me a coffee. I will leave a link to the Chap's Guide Buy Me a Coffee webpage below in the show notes. And if you pop along there, I would be delighted to share a coffee with you. So, until the next time, I wish you all the very best in your own soulful journey through life. Until then, take care.